Joe, I want to thank you for coming here today and for the unequivocal support you have given Israel during these trying times, a support that reflects the overwhelming will of the American people. I've seen your support every day in the depth and breadth of cooperation that we have had since the beginning of this war, a level of cooperation that is truly unprecedented in the history of the great alliance between our two nations. We see that support in your steadfast commitment to provide Israel with the tools we need to defend ourselves. We see that support in the clear message you've sent our enemies not to test our resolve, and in the 2 American carrier battle groups that you sent to the region to back up those words with action. But above all, Mr. President, the world sees that support in the moral clarity that you have demonstrated from the moment Israel was attacked. You've rightly drawn a clear line between the forces of civilization and the forces of barbarism. You described what Hamas did as sheer evil. It is exactly that. Hamas murdered children in front of their parents and parents in front of their children. They burnt people alive. They raped and murdered women. They beheaded soldiers. They searched for the secret hiding places where parents hid their children. And just imagine, Mr. President, the fear and the panic of those little children in their last moments as the monsters found out their hiding places. Hamas kidnapped women, children, elderly, Holocaust survivors. I know you share our outrage on this, and I know you share our determination to bring these people back. On October 7th, Hamas murdered 1,400 Israelis, maybe more. This is in a country of fewer than 10 million people. This would be equivalent to over 50,000 Americans murdered in a single day. That's 29 11s. That is why October 7th is another day that will live in infamy. Mr. President, you rightly said that Hamas is worse than ISIS. The German chancellor, who visited here yesterday, said that Hamas were the new Nazis. You're both right. And just as the civilized world united to defeat the Nazis and united to defeat ISIS, the civilized world must unite to defeat Hamas. I can assure you, Mr. President, Israel is united to defeat Hamas, and we will defeat Hamas and remove this terrible threat from our lives. The forces of civilization will prevail for our sake, for your sake, for peace and security in our region and in the world. Mr. President, for the people of Israel, there's only one thing better than having a true friend like you standing with Israel, and that is having you standing in Israel. Your visit here is the first visit of an American president in Israel at a time of war. It is deeply, deeply moving. It speaks to the depth of your personal commitment to Israel. It speaks to the depth of your personal commitment to the future of the Jewish people and the one and only Jewish state. So I know I speak for all the people of Israel when I say, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for standing with Israel today, tomorrow, and always.
Well, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much. Look, folks, I wanted to be here today for a simple reason. I want the people of Israel, the people of the world, to know where the United States stands. I've had my great Secretary of State here. He's been here for a lot, but I wanted to personally come and make that clear. Terrorist group Hamas has slaughtered, as has been pointed out, over 1,300 people. And it's not hyperbole to suggest slaughtered. And including 31 Americans as part of that. And they've taken scores of people hostage, including children. You said, imagine what those children hiding from Hamas were thinking. It's beyond my comprehension to be able to imagine what they're thinking. Beyond my comprehension. They're committed evils that, and atrocities that make ISIS look somewhat more rational. You know, Americans are grieving with you. They really are. And Americans are worried. Americans are worried because we know this is not an easy field to navigate, what you have to do. But
Prime Minister Sunak, Rishi, I want to thank you for your solidarity, your clear, unwavering support from the minute this war began. I think the fact that you came to Israel tells us a lot. I said to President Biden yesterday that there's one thing more heartwarming than standing with Israel, it's standing in Israel. And the fact that you came here to do that is a very strong statement of support, which we deeply appreciate. Chancellor Scholz, who also visited here, called Hamas the new Nazis. He was right. You fought the Nazis 80 years ago, resolutely, and the entire world supported your action. President Biden called Hamas worse than ISIS. He's right, too. Hamas are the new Nazis, they're the new ISIS, and we have to fight them together, just as the world, the civilized world, united to fight the Nazis and united to fight Hamas. It must together now stand with Israel as we fight and defeat Hamas. This is not merely our battle, it's the battle of the entire civilized world. It's the battle of Israel, it's the battle of the moderate Arab countries, it's the battle of Western civilization, the battle of the free world, the battle for the future. We have here two forces. One is an axis of evil led by Iran through Hezbollah, Hamas, and others that want to bring back the Middle East to the Middle Ages, to an age of bondage and war and slavery and annihilation. And the other force is the forces of progress and humanity that want to push the Middle East into a world of peace and prosperity. We are on the cusp of expanding that peace, and destroying that move was one of the reasons why this action was taken. We have to resist it, and we have to win. Above all, we have to win. We have to release the hostages. You have nationals. Understand that, I know you do, that we have their children, babies, women, elderly, Holocaust survivors, and your nationals. And we have to work together in every way possible, and we're doing that, to get them back. I appreciate the fact that you also sent some military forces into the region. We discussed practical cooperation on many fronts, and I value that very much. 80 years ago, Prime Minister, the civilized world stood with you in your darkest hour. This is our darkest hour. It's the world's darkest hour. We need to stand together, and we want to win. And this is why I value your support, and the fact that you're here. We must win together. That means that this is a long war, and we'll need your continuous support, There'll be ups and downs, there'll be difficulties. The people here are united. They're prepared to take the necessary action. I've never seen the people of Israel as united, more united than they are now. But we need that unity across the board and continuous support as we prosecute and win this just war against the modern barbarians, the worst monsters on the planet. Thank you, Rishi, for coming here.
Well, Prime Minister, thank you for your warm words and for welcoming me to Israel. I'm just sorry to be here in such terrible circumstances. In the last 2 weeks, this country has gone through something that no country, no people should have to endure, least of all Israel, which has lived through some of the most awful scenes, the spectre of violence and terrorism every day of its existence. And I want to share the deep condolences of the British people and stress that we absolutely support Israel's right to defend itself in line with international law, to go after Hamas, to take back hostages, deter further incursions, and to strengthen your security for the long term. Now, I know that you are taking every precaution to avoid harming civilians, in direct contrast to the terrorists of Hamas, which seek to put civilians in harm's way. But I also want to thank you for the support that your government has given to the families of British nationals caught up in this horror, including your efforts to release the hostages, secure their release, and I know that we will continue to cooperate, particularly with regard to the British nationals that are involved. Can I also say that we have seen the scenes over the past day that have shocked all of us, particularly at the hospital, and we mourn the loss of every innocent life, civilians of every faith, every nationality who have been killed. And we also recognize that the Palestinian people are victims of Hamas too. And that is why I welcome your decision yesterday that you took to ensure that routes into Gaza will be opened for humanitarian aid to enter. I'm glad that you made that decision. We will support it. We're increasing our aid to the region, and we will look to get more support to people as quickly as we can. The last thing for me to close on is this. You describe this as Israel's darkest hour. Well, then it's for me to say I'm proud to stand here with you in Israel's darkest hour. As your friend, we will stand with you in solidarity. We will stand with your people, and we also want you to win.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Prime Minister, Chancellor Scholz, thank you for coming to Israel. Thank you for your solidarity with Israel, you, the government of Germany, the people of Germany, in these trying times. 80 years ago, our people experienced the worst savagery in the history of humanity with the Nazi crimes against the Jewish people on the soil of Germany and Europe. I must tell you, my friend, that the savagery that we witnessed perpetrated by the Hamas murderers coming out of Gaza were the worst crimes committed against Jews since the Holocaust. The decapitation of people, the shooting of little children with bound hands, the murder of children in front of their parents, the murder of parents in front of their children, the hiding of babies in the attic, and the murderers who came to the attic to murder the babies, the rape and murder of women, the abduction of families, the tearing of grandmothers and Holocaust survivors into captivity, the death pits that remind us of Babi Yar, where jeeps surround a depression in the ground where they crowd young people in and they shoot them with machine guns. This is the savagery that we only remember from the Nazi crimes in the Holocaust. Hamas are the new Nazis. Hamas is ISIS, in some instances worse than ISIS. And just as the world united to defeat the Nazis, just as the world united to defeat ISIS, the world has to stand united behind Israel to defeat Hamas. This is part of an axis of evil of Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas. Their goal, open goal, is to eradicate the state of Israel. The open goal of Hamas is to kill as many Jews as they could, and the only difference is they would have killed every last one of us, murdered every last one of us, if they could. They just don't have the capacity, but they murdered an extraordinary 1,300 civilians, which in American terms is like many, many, many 9/11s. So obviously we must take action to defeat Hamas and to ensure that this doesn't happen again. But this is not only our battle, it is our common battle, the battle of civilization against barbarism. And if it's not stopped here, this savagery will reach you very soon and reach the entire world. We have a vested interest, an abiding interest, to make sure that doesn't happen, and it can only be achieved with the solidarity of the civilized world. I hope and I believe that many, many around the world see ISIS for what it is, or see Hamas for what it is, which is a reincarnation of ISIS. And we appreciate the fact that you came here to stand with us in this battle for the future of civilization. Thank you, Chancellor. Now, Minister Meloni, Georgia, thank you for coming here. Thanks for standing with Israel. We always say there's one thing better than standing with Israel. It's standing in Israel. So we welcome you for coming here. This is a time, our darkest hour. We have to defeat this barbarism. This is a battle between the forces of civilization and really monstrous barbarians who murdered, mutilated, raped, beheaded, burnt innocent people, babies, grandmothers. This is a test of civilization, and we will win. And we expect all the countries that lined up to fight ISIS to line up and fight Hamas, because Hamas is the new ISIS. So thank you for coming here.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I'm happy of being here. I thought it was very important to come personally to bring the solidarity of the Italian government and the Italian people, and to tell you that we saw images that were incredible about what happened 2 weeks ago, that showed something more than simply, well, a war. They showed somebody who wants to cancel Jewish people from this region, and it is up to anti-Semitism, and that's something that we have to fight yesterday and today. So we defend the right of Israel of existing, of defending itself, security for its people, and we absolutely understand that terrorism has to be fought. And we believe and we think that you are able to do that in the best way. I mean, for we are different from those terrorists.
Well, we certainly are. We certainly are. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Please sit down. President Macron, Emmanuel, thank you for coming to Israel. Your support, that of your delegation, is highly appreciated. On October 7th, Hamas waged war at Israel. It was the worst terrorist attack the world has known since 9/11, but for Israel, proportionately, it was like 20 9/11s. It was the worst act of anti-Semitic violence since the Holocaust. I described to you some of the horrors. It's impossible to describe all of them. But like Anne Frank, Jewish children hid in attics from these monsters, and they were found and butchered. As in Babi Yar, Jews were machine-gunned in killing pits. Hamas butchered, Hamas beheaded, Hamas burned babies alive. Hamas raped, Hamas kidnapped hostages, over 200, babies, children, elderly, Holocaust survivors. We are in a war between barbarism and civilization. Chancellor Scholz, who visited Israel, said that Hamas are the new Nazis. And as in the Second World War, when the Allies fully supported the French anti-Nazi resistance, today the international community is uniting in support of Israel. For Hamas, barbarism not only threatens the Jews, it threatens the Middle East, it threatens the region, it threatens Europe, it threatens the world. Hamas is the test case of civilization against barbarism. And Mr. President, you and the French people have known the horror of terrorism. You experienced it in Nice and Lyon, in Paris. You refuse to tolerate this threat. And the people of Israel refuse to have ISIS in a terror enclave on its border. I have to explain. This is not an enclave of ISIS thousands of kilometers away from Europe. It's ISIS in the suburbs of Paris. It's ISIS, you can drive 20 minutes and you reach the suburbs of Paris and you have ISIS there. We cannot live like that. Nobody could live like that. So we are doing everything we need to do to destroy Hamas in Gaza. We will dismantle its terror machine. We will dismantle its political structure. We will make every effort to release our hostages, and we'll make every effort to keep Palestinian civilians out of harm's way. It's important to understand Hamas is committing a double war crime. It's not only murdering our civilians, targeting our civilians, doing unspeakable war crimes. They're also hiding behind civilians, their own civilians. We asked the people of Gaza to leave, to go to a safe zone in the south where we're enabling humanitarian aid to reach them. Hamas is putting checkpoints with people with guns to prevent Palestinians from leaving the war zone. Hamas is responsible for civilian casualties, but we will do every effort to avoid them and to fight this war as speedily and as rapidly as we can, but it could be a long war. When this is over, the people of Israel will rebuild their communities, and the people of Gaza will no longer live under Hamas tyranny. But first, there's one condition for anything that could happen and the good things that could happen once this war is over. And that condition is that Hamas must be destroyed. And I thank you, Emmanuel, for coming here to Israel, for standing with Israel, for standing with us in Israel and expressing your support. We rely on your continued support as this important battle for our future, our common future, proceeds till victory. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to welcome you here. Czech Republic has been very, very strongly supportive of Israel through good times and dark times. This is our darkest hour, and I appreciate the fact that you're standing here. Your support is invaluable, and I welcome you to Israel. I always say that standing with Israel, there's only one thing better than that, and that is standing in Israel. And that's what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I came here in this difficult time to express our clear support and solidarity with Israel. We had a plan to meet in Prague at October the 8th, but one day before, Hamas and Palestinian terrorist organizations started their barbaric terror. October 7th was the most tragic day for Israel and Jewish people for decades. One Czech citizen was also a victim of this act of terror. The pictures and videos which we have seen are shocking, really shocking. These acts of violence have no place in our world. I want to make it very clear, Czech Republic stands with Israel, now and ever. And like 75 years ago, you can count on our voice and support. I am glad that Czech companies immediately supplied basic military equipment to Israel. Specifically, it was 3,000 pieces of ballistic plates, and we have option to send more. Israel has an absolute right to defend itself. Terrorists still have more than 200 hostages. I feel deeply with all families. The international community must push for their unconditional release. Tomorrow I am going to Brussels to a European Council meeting, and my goal is to ensure that the Council confirms a strong support for Israel and its right to defend itself. Hamas is our common enemy. We must ensure that it is isolated, and it is on EU terror list for years, and now we must act. So, dear Prime Minister, Israel can count on Czech Republic. We are with you, as we always have been.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Hello. Good to see you. Good to see
second visit. But,
Yes, and
under
other
different
other circumstances.
I thank you, Chancellor, for coming here. You've expressed unqualified support for Israel. It's our darkest hour. And your support is important because this is a battle of civilization against barbarism. And Israel is fighting the battle for civilization, which I know you support. So thank you for coming here.
That's the reason why I'm here, also with my Prime Minister colleague from the Czech Republic, because we stand on the side of Israel. We have the same and share the same values, and the joint fight against terrorism is now more important than ever.
This is barbarism. This
It's
is barbarism.
yeah.
It's the worst atrocities committed against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. It's worse than ISIS.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So we have to fight.
Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please sit down.
Hi, Bibi. Good to see you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Please. I want to welcome you, Mark. You've been a tremendous friend of Israel. We're in a battle of civilization against barbarism. Hamas is ISIS, and just as the world united to defeat ISIS, the world has to unite against Hamas, unite with Israel to defeat them. I know you understand that this is a battle of humanity against barbarism that is savagery that is unimaginable. I've been through wars. I've seen horrible things. I've never seen things this horrible. This is a battle of our common civilization.
Bibi, it's good to be here today. My respect for what your team is doing to try to fend off this attack and to restore the safety of Israel. I know so many people. I think the count is now 1,400. Israeli people have died through this attack, and it is horrible. It is horrific. And well, we are going to discuss how now to best move forward. But so, thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you, friend, for coming.
Thank you.
I always say there's one thing greater than standing with Israel, and that's standing in Israel. And that's what you're doing, Mark. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
In very
Yeah.
difficult circumstances.
Prime Minister, my good friend Kyriakos, it's very good to see you here. I always say that the best thing above standing with Israel is standing in Israel, and you're doing that. I appreciate the solidarity of you, your government, the people of Greece at this darkest hour. It's a battle against civilization. It's civilization against barbarism. We're in the size of civilization, and we have to unite all together against Hamas, which is ISIS.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Dear Bibi, I come here not just as an ally, but as a true friend. What happened was truly horrible, and Greece from the very first moment defended and supported the right of Israel to defend itself in line with international law, and we drew a very clear distinction between Hamas and the Palestinian people, and we will continue to be able to support you and to hope that whatever happens without too much of a humanitarian cost. But you can count on our support, on our help.
Thank you, friend. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Nicholas, my friend, you are coming at a time which I can say is our darkest hour. It's a battle of civilization against barbarism. What we saw in Gaza along our communities is beyond description. It's savagery that is the worst that we've seen against Jewish people since the Holocaust. They murdered children in front of their parents and parents in front of their children, burned people alive, decapitated people, raped and murdered women. Babies were hiding in the attic. They killed them. Today we discovered a grandmother in a secret attic holding her grandchild. They murdered both of them. This is savagery on a scale that is unimaginable. And our battle against Hamas is the battle of civilization against barbarism. Hamas, I said in the UN 10 years ago, almost a decade ago, Hamas is ISIS. People didn't believe me. Now they know it's actually worse than ISIS, as President Biden has said. And Chancellor Scholz said that Hamas are the new Nazis. The world united to fight the Nazis. The civilized world united to fight Hamas or ISIS, and now the civilized world should stand with us as we defeat ISIS. This is our goal, and I thank you for your strong support from the start.
Be sure, and I'll continue.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, we very much appreciate your coming here to be with the people of Israel. You stand with Israel, and you stand in Israel at the time of great turmoil. Romania has always been a friend of Israel, but friends are tested in times of need. There is a need now for the support of all the European countries for Israel's just battle against these barbarians, these savages who broke every norm, who are really the new Nazis. They murdered children, they beheaded young people, they burnt them alive, they raped and murdered women, they kidnapped old people, they murdered little children in front of their families and murdered the parents in front of their children. There was no mercy. There were death pits. There were killings of people who were hiding in attics. This is exactly like Babi Yar. It's as though Anne Frank comes back, the story. The horror is the same horror. But we have today, unlike the Holocaust, a state and an army and a people that can fight back. And we are not fighting just our war, we're fighting the war of all civilized countries and all civilized peoples. And just as the civilized world united in fighting the Nazis, united in fighting Daesh, ISIS, then the civilized world should unite behind Israel in fighting and eradicating Hamas. And I appreciate your solidarity at this time for this goal that serves our common civilization. Thank you, Prime Minister, and we'll do everything in our power to assist the removal or the exit of your nationals from Gaza, to the extent that that's possible, obviously. But the quest for peace in the Middle East is something we share. Such a peace will only be possible if this caliphate, this Daesh caliphate, is destroyed. Nobody could make peace with Daesh, nobody could make peace with Al-Qaeda, and nobody could make peace with the Nazis. They have to be defeated. Then we have the peace. Thank you.
אני מחטיבה 5.
הצוותים התפוצצו כתוצאה מהלחימה, אבל זה גם כאילו, זה כבר לחימת הפנג'רים. כמות מטורפת של תחמושת, ואחריהם גל נוסף של חמושים שרצים ברגל, שזה לוחמי ספר, לא נוח'בה ולא הכל, שהם שוכבים עם המחבלים באותו מקום. חברי קריית כהנו, את המחבלים, 10 הרוגים פה, 3 הרוגים פה.
אז אני מבקש ממך לא לסיים עד שאנחנו לא מוצאים פתרון לביטחון שלנו. תודה.
קוראים לך?
ארז.
תודה.
תודה.
למרוק, למוכנים. למוכנים. מוכנים כולם?
כן.